Imagine standing on a pristine plot of land in the 1930s. Below you, the sprawl of Los Angeles glitters like a promise. You have been hired to build a $100,000 sanctuary, a masterpiece of Spanish colonial revival for the biggest star in Hollywood. But as you stand there holding your transit and your sketches, you are acutely aware of a legal document filed in the county office. It's a restrictive covenant. It states in cold, legal ink that no person of your ancestry shall ever occupy, lease, or own this land. How do you respond to a world that wants your genius but rejects your personhood? Most would fight with words. Paul Revere Williams fought with stone, steel, and a level of professional excellence that made the world's prejudices look like architectural flaws. He didn't just break the glass ceiling, he designed the glass, the frame, and the skyscraper it sat upon. This is the story of the man who built Hollywood. We are going beyond the celebrity mansions to look at the social engineering of a master strategist. This is Paul R. Williams, the architect of the impossible. To understand the man, we have to look at the soil he grew up in. Los Angeles in the 1890s wasn't the concrete jungle we know today. It was a dusty, ambitious town of 50,000 people. Paul was born in 1894, a rare California native. But by age 4, his world collapsed. Both his parents died of tuberculosis within 2 years of each other. He was an orphan in a city that was rapidly segregating, and he was placed in a foster home and became the only African-American student in his elementary school. It was here that he first felt the weight of the draft. When he told a teacher he wanted to be an architect, the response wasn't encouragement, it was a warning. "Your own people can't afford you," she said, "and white people won't hire you." In that moment, Paul didn't see a wall, he saw a design challenge. He realized early that average was a luxury he couldn't afford. To survive, he had to become a chameleon of craft. He spent his teenage years at the Los Angeles School of Art and Design, not just learning to draw, but learning the physics of grandeur. He studied how the masters of the Renaissance used symmetry to command respect. He wasn't just learning a job, he was building an intellectual fortress. By the early 1920s, Williams was ready to open his own firm, but he faced a brutal psychological barrier. In the Jim Crow era, the sight of a black man sitting next to a white woman to discuss her bedroom layout or her private gardens was a transgression many wealthy clients couldn't handle. The tension in the room could kill a contract before a single line was drawn. So, Williams engineered a workaround. He taught himself to draw upside down. Think about the cognitive load of this strategy. He would sit across the desk from a client, maintaining a respectful distance. As they spoke, he would sketch their dream home from their perspective. If they wanted a Mediterranean arch, he drew it inverted from his view, but perfectly oriented for theirs. This wasn't just a gimmick, it was a high-stakes psychological play. It achieved 3 things. First, it removed the physical proximity that made clients nervous. Second, it showcased a level of virtuosity that suggested he was more than a man, he was a wizard. Third, it forced the client to look at the drawing, not the drafter. He used technical dominance to bypass social prejudice. By the time the sketch was finished, the client was no longer thinking about his race, they were thinking about how soon they could move in. If you look at the estates of Lucille Ball, Desi Arnaz, or Frank Sinatra, you see a recurring theme: the entrance. Williams understood that in Hollywood, your home was your opening scene. He became the undisputed master of the curved staircase. Technically, these staircases are nightmares to build. They require precise mathematical curves and structural reinforcement to look weightless. Williams used his engineering background to hide the support beams, creating stairs that seemed to float. He knew that if a movie star could make a grand descent into their foyer, they would feel like they were in a Williams home. He was selling theatricality as a structural element. He also pioneered the outdoor-indoor flow. He realized that the California climate was his greatest asset. He began replacing solid walls with massive glass doors and porticos. He was one of the first to treat the patio as a primary room. This was a strategic shift from the dark, heavy architecture of the East Coast to something breezy, modern, and aspirational. In the 1930s, most architects had a signature style. Frank Lloyd Wright had his prairie houses, Le Corbusier had his machines for living. But Williams took a different strategic path. He decided to have no signature style. He became a chameleon. If a client wanted a French Regency chateau, he gave them the best one in California. If they wanted a Spanish colonial villa or an English Tudor manor, he mastered the specific language of that style. Why? Because as a black architect, he couldn't afford to be niche. He had to be the answer to every question. This diversification was his insurance policy during the Great Depression. While other firms collapsed because their style went out of fashion, Williams stayed busy because he could build anything for anyone. He mastered over a dozen architectural vernaculars, making him the most versatile tool in the Los Angeles construction boom. To maintain his position, Williams had to navigate the social codes of the white elite with surgical precision. He never shook hands unless the client offered first, often keeping his hands clasped behind his back to avoid a potential snub. He dressed with a conservative, high-end elegance that signaled professional before pioneer. He lived in the West Adams district, a vibrant hub for the black elite, but he spent his days in Bel Air and Hancock Park. He was a ghost in the neighborhoods he was building. He used this outsider status to his advantage. Because he wasn't part of the social circles of his clients, he could observe them with the clinical eye of an anthropologist. He knew their desires, their insecurities, and their need for status better than they knew themselves. By the 1940s, Williams's reputation was so solid that he was no longer just building houses, he was building icons. He was hired to renovate the Beverly Hills Hotel. This was the ultimate strategic branding project. He is the man who gave the hotel its signature crescent wing and the iconic green and white striped ceilings. He understood that luxury is about visual rhythm. He used the banana leaf wallpaper and the pink and green color palette to create a sense of tropical sophistication that became the hotel's global trademark. When you see that pink facade today, you are looking at the marketing genius of Paul Williams. He didn't just design a building, he designed a mood that has lasted for 80 years. As the 1950s turned into the 60s, Williams proved he wasn't just a master of the past. He embraced the space age. He was part of the joint venture team, Pereira and Luckman, Welton Beckett, and Paul R. Williams, that designed the theme building at LAX. This was a radical departure from his residential work. It used parabolic arches of reinforced concrete to create a structure that looked like it was ready for liftoff. It was the centerpiece of the jet age. This project proved his technical range. He could move from a 17th century French staircase to a 21st century spider building without breaking his stride. He was now an architect not just for people, but for the future itself. By the time he retired, Williams had completed over 3,000 projects. This is a staggering number for any architect. It included the MCA building, the First African Methodist Episcopal Church, and the Botwinick House. He was the first black member of the AIA and its first black fellow. He used his final years to mentor the next generation. He knew that he had paved a road through a jungle of prejudice, and he wanted to make sure that roads stayed open. He left behind a blueprint for success that was about more than just drafting. It was about character, resilience, and the strategic use of excellence as a weapon against ignorance. Paul R. Williams taught us that a building is more than just four walls and a roof. It is a statement of existence. He turned every rejection into a reason to be better. He drew the world he wanted to see, even when that world didn't want to see him. He is the architect of elegance, the designer of Hollywood, and a permanent strategist in time. If you were inspired by this journey, like and subscribe.